you still remember Dayshift at Freddy's? Dayshift, or DSaF for short, is a satirical take on the Five Nights at Freddy's series. Instead of playing as a regular night shift guard, you work as a Dayshift employee in a visual novel-like setting. Compared to the serious horror tone of FNAF, DSaF has dozens of crude jokes and memes scattered throughout, making it a one-of-a-kind experience. And one staple of DSaF that always seems to stand out are the phone guys. In DSaF, the phone guy is a joke/reference about FNAF's own phone guy, but in DSaF, it's taken quite literally. The design is quite iconic, and since it's just a simple PNG slapped onto a body, it's very easy for people to make their own phone guy. And believe it or not, while it was originally just a gag, as the sequels were made, there started to be a surprisingly good amount of lore for them. So, if you're always wondering more about what these phone guys were, then look no further as I'll be breaking it all down. What they truly are, how they work, how they were made, and where they come from. So, to get started, we first need to understand what exactly is a phone guy. Phone guy is a designated manager at a Freddy Fazbender's Pepperoni, with several iterations of the phone guys being created throughout the years. Above all else, phone guys were designed to be the epitome of the perfect manager, and with their varying head designs, they fit in well with the company mascots, making them also part of the lovable cast. In reality, however, every phone guy is actually a reanimated corpse of a previous employee, usually after the result of a spring lock failure while performing in a spring suit. The spring suits are a robotic suit hybrid designed by DSaF antagonist Henry Miller. Once a failure occurs, the remains are then sent to the factory to have a phone stitched to their head, complete with a modified voice box and an AI program to make them feel more human. This process is something I like to call phonification. How this is possible is through DSaF's rules on how souls work. In the DSaF universe, souls have power, and there are different types of souls, but the important thing to note is that when flesh gets merged with steel, a soul can repossess itself. So why is a family-friendly company keeping such a dark secret? Well, it all starts with the first owner and phone guy, Scott Cawthorn, and the original 5 managers. Scott was an honest and kind man who wanted to bring joy to children and adults alike. So, during the 1950s, he opened his first restaurant, Freddy Fazbender's Pepperoni. Over time, multiple chains were built, and in order to keep up with the demand, Scott would promote 5 of his trusted employees to manager. All of them, except for Abel, would become close friends. And as Freddy's was on its way to global success, tragedy struck. During a regular performance, Scott slipped and banged his head on a table, bleeding out instantly. This greatly hurt the company, and desperate to bring their beloved owner back, they turned to a book called The Joy of Creation by the same Henry Miller. The book explains how things can be brought back to life as metal has a life force. So after 20 years of research and using a newly bought factory that was used to create the spring suits, the remaining managers were able to use that machine to bring Scott back to life, but at a cost. With the tech still being in its early stages, the process was incomplete, and the AI they gave him was based on how they saw Scott as a person, and not who he really was, so it didn't pair well. For Scott, it was painful just to exist, so the company had to put him out of his misery. This led to Abel being promoted as head manager. Now, Abel was a complete opposite from Scott, being more corporate and cold-hearted. So with Abel now in charge, he saw a benefit for the machine and the spring suits. Abel then implemented the use of the suits at their locations despite the danger it posed, and assigned the other managers to wear them. This was intentional as he knew the spring suits were dangerous, and it was only a matter of time as each of the managers would fall victim to spring lock failure. Each time it happened, Abel would use the opportunity to make adjustments to the AI. All of this was in preparation for Abel's grand plan, the introduction of Generation 1. Harry, the youngest of the group, would be the last of the remaining 5 to wear a suit and make the same fate. However, Abel did one last modification, which was to completely remove their memories and replace it with a faked version of Scott's. And it was a success. However, this devastated Joe and the rest of the group. So finally, after fed up with what Abel put them through, the rest of the four ganged up on Abel at the factory one day and turned him into a phone guy. However, Abel was able to keep his memories intact, and he would continue to act as the head manager at Fassbender's for the majority of the 70s, until Abel met his end in 1983 to a crazed candy employee. As for the fate of the original five, only Harry would survive as the rest would die to different causes. But this wouldn't be the end of Fassbender's yet, as an entrepreneur named Bono would buy out the entire pizzeria chain, and sought to implement a new change for the company, starting by improving the phone guys with the productions of the Gen 2s. Gen 2 was the company's attempt to retweak the AI, as the original process was too intense. So instead they toned down the AI to increase the survival rate, and also as a way to humanize the phone guys with their original personalities mixing with Scott's. This worked to some extent as phone guys started to be more dynamic. However, some of them started to remember too much, like their past lives, resulting in many going insane and or abandoning their post. One notable example of this is the purple phone guy from DSaF 3, whose original name was Jake Wilson. Before being a phone guy, Jake was a husband and father who worked at location 53 under Abel. After being phoneified, he was moved around different locations until 1993, when he started having nightmares about his past life, notably about his son Jason. One day he went AWOL and went out to search for him, and Jake would eventually find his son Jason, but already as a fully grown adult with a loving family. So, not wanting to intrude on his life as he is now, Jake returned to Fassbender's. Eventually, during Fassbender's final years in the 1990s, the Gen 3s were created. However, there were very few made, as by this time the company was nearly falling apart with everything that's happened. There was no AI implemented this time as they couldn't be bothered. Instead, the company used intimidation to keep their managers in check. This was the case with the orange phone guy from DSaF 3, Roger. Roger is a nervous guy who tends to stutter even with a modified voice box, and he is the only Gen 3 we see in the series, but for Roger, he didn't need to be intimidated to stay. Rather, he embraced the idea of being Scott. As before being a phone guy, Roger was an alcoholic that got divorced, dropped out of medical school, which resulted in him losing his apartment and later on his dog. So Roger took pride in his job as a manager, all until Fassbender's final location closed, in which he was shipped off to the factory with the remaining phone guys. With no restaurants and dozens of phone guys left, the factory opted to rent out the phone guys to the people. And that's how it stayed for 30 years, until Jack revised the franchise in 2023 in order to finish up his mission of saving the souls of everyone. With Jack as the final owner, he would end up meeting Harry, Jake, and Roger after hiring them to work as the managers for the final location. While working with Jack, their lives improved in the process. Jack would give Jake the courage to reunite with his son, who was accepted without any issues. Harry managed to turn his life around after officially retiring from Fassbender's and getting his own apartment, which he would invite Roger and the green phone guy to move in with, as he wants the last of the phone guys to stick together. And after Jack burns the true final location of Fassbender's, it also marks the end of the phone guys, with Jack's sacrifice giving them another chance to live a normal life. You can probably tell this video was meant for Halloween, since it is a FNAF fan game after all. The reason why I wasn't able to finish it on time was because this was actually supposed to be a DSaF timeline video. But after making a lengthy script, I decided to postpone it for now, as I'd like to make it something really special, probably for next year's Halloween. Although there are still 2 DSaF related videos I'm working on for this month. The first will be about the Miller family and their dark history, and the last one will be about the tragic story of the Kennedys. So for now, thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. Take care.